So we will be working on project 84 of your book. That's on page 54. So get your little kit out and get everything in a line and turn to page 84 and look over this. We're going to be doing the hand crank, which is going to charge our battery. It's also going to run our light bulb while it is charging the battery. So this is typically more along the lines of what you would see for an alternative energy. You would see an alternative energy source, your hand crank. If we spin it the right direction, which I believe is this way, we will see that the LED lights light up. At the same time as we are charging the battery, but we're also producing enough electricity to also run these two LEDs. So typically what you would see, now of course you wouldn't see a hand crank, but this is a rotary motion. So you would either see a solar cell or a windmill connected here. We're going to get the biggest result with this hand crank, but you could pretend that instead of having a hand crank on it, it had a wind turbine attached to it or a water turbine, anything to generate electricity. So at this point, what we want to do is connect the circuit as shown. And so I'm going to go ahead and we can pause the video now. Once the circuit is connected, we have a switch right here. This switch, what it does is it enables us to feed the battery circuit into it. So when we turn this on, we're actually connecting the negative side of the battery into the circuit. Up here, we want to make sure our switch is turned all the way to the right to the 50 milliamp slot. Currently, if we look a little bit closer at this, we will see that the system is pulling 10 milliamps. Now that's on a scale. We have it on the 50 milliamp scale, so it's probably maybe 9 milliamps is what it's pulling at this particular point, and it's producing 2.9 volts. Of course, this is a 3.6 volt battery. It's not fully charged. Most of your batteries in the kit will not put out the 3.6 volt because they're not fully charged, and I'm not quite sure how old they are either. So once we have our circuit connected, let's go back to our other view. We can either turn the crank. Notice there is a small direction arrow right here on the plate. It also in your book says to turn the handle of the hand crank counterclockwise. So if a clock goes this way, we want to turn it the opposite way. And when we do that, we'll see that the red LED comes on. We'll also see that we're actually getting a little bit of fluctuation in our current. As we spin this, it's not reading quite correctly. And we are actually charging the battery. In this configuration here with the switch off and no lights on, and we turn this, we are charging the battery and powering the LEDs. If we wanted to, we could enable the battery circuit. We would see the yellow LED coming on. We would see the current, which is a measure of the electrons flowing through the wire, that we were actually pulling current. If we turn the crank on, then we get a power assist. So typically what you would see on an off-the-grid alternative energy system with the battery backup is the wind dies down and the battery takes over. The wind picks up, then we begin to charge the circuit and produce enough electricity. Now, in our power grid, this is a little different because we don't store the energy, so to speak. We can, but mostly what we do with it is we feed it to the grid and it's automatically computer controlled to switch and go where it needs to go. But in a true off-the-grid system, you have to have some way to store your excess energy for when you're not producing, because you can't always count on the sun to shine or the wind to blow. Or if you're using a water turbine, Water is probably the most stable source, but then again, depending on your water source, if it dries up in the summer, then you lose the ability to generate electricity. Okay, so for this, we're going to modify the circuit. So we're going to turn the switch off. We're not feeding any power into the circuit. And we are going to play with putting different devices into this circuit. So we can take our yellow LED and we can snap it off. And we can insert a motor. Motor, make sure that the positive connector is, probably doesn't matter on a motor, but this will be the positive side here. We snap it in the circuit. Should be able to feel that. If you have the fan blade on there, that's great as well. Should be able to feel that motor spinning. Turn it off. Well, you can notice that our motor is pulling, and well, it kind of, as we load the motor, we'll see that the charge begins to go up. We're pulling quite a bit of more current when we add a torque load to this motor. So motors they pull quite a bit of electricity, a lot more than a LED lighting. And so we'll turn this off. If you need to during this process, go ahead and crank this counterclockwise, and you can actually see the motor begin to spin faster. If you have a partner or you have a fan blade, let's see, we have a fan blade that works. Even if some of yours are broke, we can insert this fan blade here, and maybe you'll get a better view of the motor spinning. And as we increase the speed, we're charging the circuit plus producing excess energy. If we let off, we'll see the fan begin to slow down. If we begin to load it, we can actually see that the current, because it's taking more energy to spin it, to try to keep up to speed, because I'm applying a force, we can see that current spike on our meter. So we'll turn this off. Then we will try the horn and the clock. Make sure you observe polarity on those. If you don't want to fully insert it, you can put the clock in there like so. See, the clock works. Take a moment to play with that. If you see the little red radio, just don't use that quite yet. That is what's coming up next. So we'll pause the video at this point. Okay, so we're going to take our battery. You're going to have a screwdriver, small Phillips head, and remove the back. So it looks like this. Let's go ahead and change the view. And we have our small clock radio. Now you will need, in addition to that, you will need the small adapter that looks like this. It's going to take the place of the AAA batteries that would go in this. And we have these connectors that attach to that. Now you will need a partner for this because this doesn't really fit very well in the back of the radio. So you will need a partner for that. You also need a set of headphones. If you have your own headphones, that's great. We can plug those in and we can actually listen to the radio. We'll see if we get a signal from here. Next, we are going to take our leads here, and they go into the battery like so. If you notice that there is a small wire connected to the back of the terminal, that's where it goes. And if we look here, that's not correct. We need to put it over here where the spring inserts in there correctly. and we'll see that the wire is connected, the red wire is connected to that end. See how easy it pops out. So you'll probably need a partner to help hold this in place while we do this experiment. I don't know how well I can do it. We'll see. We will connect the switch views again. We will connect the red lead in place of where we had the LED earlier. We'll snap it on there. We will connect the black lead at the bottom. And so you might want to take a moment to charge up your batteries. Give them a pretty good charge for a little bit. Notice this hand crank is very delicate, so let's not force it too much. Just slight turn is all we need. Once we've got that going, we'll see if we can get some sound through the audio here. We will enable our battery. Right now we're producing, it looks like we've charged it up to 3.5 volts. So we'll enable the battery. And we'll test this to make sure that if we hold this button that the LED light comes on. So now that we know that this is hooked up and working, we should be able to turn the volume all the way up. And so if we turn our system on, we should see that this is working. And you'll have to have your partner hold this in here, but turn your volume all the way up, insert your headphones, hit the scan button to change. Let's see if we can get some audio out of this. So I don't know if you can hear this audio coming on. It's very faint, but you should be able to hear sound coming out of your radio. Once you've completed this, make sure that you put your kits back in the appropriate place. You should have a diagram in the front of your book detailing how all the pieces go back in your kit. Let's put everything back the way it came out. And that is the end of the video.